Can you grab more napkins? And see you at the next cookout. Your marriage apparently took a hard left, and now you're just trying to figure out when it all went wrong. Wife funneled tens of thousands of dollars into affair partner's business. I divorced her, left her with nothing, and made the kids hate her. My 44 male wife, Angela, 42 female, has been cheating on me. This is something that I only recently found out. I spent almost half of my life with this woman, and I really did believe that I had gotten to the point where it was assured that we would spend the rest of it together. I would have had us go the distance if it had been my choice, but there are two people in a relationship, and if one of those two people doesn't treasure it as much as they should, there's nothing you can do to patch the gap. It's sad, but it's the reality. I thought I had grown old enough for certain things not to hurt me, but this one stung like a witch. I'll have you know, I've never had to endure this kind of pain before. At least, not in the last 2 decades of my life. I've been married to Angela for 18 years, and we had a good marriage. As much as I resent her in this moment, I am honest enough to admit that our marriage was good, at least on the surface. Maybe she was always cheating on me, and I never knew. But the experience I had being married to her was good up until this moment. We have 2 children who are both old teenagers. And they're a big part of why, no matter what, I think that our marriage was worth it, even if we have to part ways. They're great kids, and they mean the entire world to me. I found out that Angela was cheating on me because she got sloppy, and that led me to dig up the truth. Or maybe I should say that she got cocky and risky. We had a barbecue with a bunch of people in the neighborhood. I knew essentially everyone there, though I won't say that I actively talked to all of them. One of the people there was an older guy named Rob. I've seen him a few times and we've had short talks before, but he's not one of the people in the neighborhood who I say I'm good friends with. He was at the barbecue and I said hi to him as I always do, but we didn't talk at length. I just chatted with him for a few seconds and then I moved on to someone who I was friendlier with. The thing is, I didn't even know what happened that day. Everything seemed fine to me, and so did Angela when we got back home much later that night. The next day was a Sunday, and that's when Keith, one of the people in the neighborhood who I'm closer with, came to see me. He told me that he'd love if I could take a look at his car for him, which was weird since I'm not particularly savvy when it comes to cars. I didn't grow up fixing them, but I knew the basics, or a little more than the basics, like the average man does. So I decided to help him out. We walked over to his driveway and he told me that he was just trying to get me away from Angela and there was nothing wrong with his car. I found it amusing because I didn't think that there could be anything really serious behind the situation, but I saw that his face wasn't laughing along with me. He wasn't sneaking me out so that we could drink beers or watch the game. He told me that something had happened at the barbecue that previous day. He had seen it and he knew he was going to tell me, but he needed the perfect time to do that. He refused to tell me over text since he didn't know what Angela could and couldn't see. I asked him what was going on since I started to get pretty concerned. Keith had been standing by the guy working the grill. He was just scanning the crowd while drinking a beer, and he saw Angela standing beside Rob. He said that they weren't even talking, but she saw Angela's hand stealthily reach out to hold Rob's finger. But before she could close her hand around his finger, he pulled it away quickly. She tried to do it again, and he reacted the same way. He said he saw Rob say something short to her, but she didn't say anything back, and he walked away immediately after that. Rob didn't seem confused, like Keith might have if she kept trying to grab his fingers. He said the reaction didn't seem like Angela was acting weird, but more like Angela was acting inappropriately for where they were. He tried to make sure that I understood he wasn't telling me something that had happened for sure between the two of them, but he knew that it was concerning enough and that it was important that I knew about it, so I could do my own investigation and figure out the truth. The best case scenario for me was that Angela had had too many beers that afternoon and had gotten a little playful. Worst case scenario was that it was her being risky in public with someone she was risque with behind closed doors. I sat down and thought about it for some time, but I genuinely couldn't think of anything that pointed to Angela having a thing with Rob. She never talked about him. When I talked about him, she never seemed to have much to say. His work has nothing to do with her work. I couldn't find a single common thread between the two of them, but I was still going to investigate and dive into what Keith had told me. I thanked him and let him know that I'd keep him abreast on anything that I found out. At first, I just wanted to go snooping into her phone to see whether there was any communication with Rob, but I had a feeling that she wasn't going to be so sloppy, even though she had been sloppy about the barbecue. Yes, I did eventually check her phone, and while she had Rob as a contact, there was absolutely nothing of note in there. It was a perfectly innocent conversation between the two people who lived in the same neighborhood. At one point, she asked about his business and how much his services cost, but that was it. I knew that I was going to have to go the PI route with her. I didn't want to do it because of the cost, but I realized that it was going to be the only way to really make sure that something wasn't going on. I can't live in a house with a woman who I suspect might be cheating. I need to know for a fact that she isn't cheating so that things can finally go back to normal. So, I met up with the PI, told him the situation, and explained that what I needed wasn't around-the-clock surveillance for her. I really needed to make sure that in the times when she left the house and I couldn't verify where she was going, that she was actually going where she said she was. So, we worked a deal where I paid what was essentially a retainer and I could get him to snap into action to monitor her when she was going out. Most times, I gave him notice when I knew she'd be going out. There were some occasions where she'd have something impromptu to do. I had the PI follow her for what I think came to about 2 weeks and a few days, before he finally got what I was looking for. I'm glad I had pushed for a little longer, because if I had stopped, I would have chosen to assume there was another explanation for what Keith had seen, or that he hadn't even read the situation right. On a day when Angela told me that she wanted to go shopping to get herself some nice things, she had left the house in her car, driven to a mall that was almost an hour away, and not the one we typically went to, and she had met up with the man there. I found out that the man was Rob, based on the pictures that I was given by the PI. They went into the mall, where they went into a jewelry store, and he bought her something. They went to an ice cream spot and laughed for a while there. Then they left the mall entirely, drove another 20 minutes north, and booked into a motel for about an hour. After that, they left and went back to the mall, where Angela got into her car, and they parted ways. She went to a clothing store after that and bought herself some things. Then she came home. To me, who had no idea what she had been up to, her story checked out because all I knew was that she left the house and then she came back with a few bags of stuff. It made sense that I had never had an idea that she was cheating on me because she always buried it within what she claimed she was going to do that day. I remember shaking my head, somewhat impressed at how much effort she put into being able to cheat on me. I still really don't understand why she felt a compulsion to. We've never had a bad marriage, so it just didn't make sense to me why she would feel the need to go out and cheat on me, and with someone who lived in our neighborhood at that. But after thinking about it for a bit, I managed to force myself to accept that there's only so much you can do. A cheating partner will cheat if they want to, and there really isn't anything you can do to change the course of action for them. They have to choose not to want to be a disgusting partner. I have been unable to look at her the same way ever since I went back home with that information in mind. It's a wild thing to love someone with all of your might and end up finding out that this person doesn't care enough about you to want to keep your marriage safe and in one piece. We have children, and she clearly didn't even think of them before she went out to be selfish. I'm going to have to figure out how to confront her about this. I don't want to make things too messy because I don't want our kids to end up in the middle of this. So I'll need tact. If anyone here has suggestions, I would love to hear them. The neighborhood part would mess with my head the most. Like, you're supposed to feel comfortable in your own space, wave at people, have barbecues, live your life. Now there's this gross layer over it because she chose someone close enough that you could have been making small talk with the same week she was sneaking off to a motel. That's a different kind of disrespect. Update 1. I knew that I was going to be coming up with an update to my last post, but what I didn't know was the direction that this update was going to take. Something completely unexpected has happened, and I genuinely don't know how any of this happened. I don't know how it was possible for me to miss this. If I hadn't, I might have known about the affair that Angela was having a lot earlier. I decided to meet up with a divorce lawyer so that I could get prepared to split. I was going to make it easy and just tell her that I knew about the divorce, that we were going to go our separate ways, but now that I know what I know, it seems that I'm not going to get away with letting things end in such a basic fashion. The divorce lawyer wanted to have a good look at the state of our finances, so she would understand how we'd be able to navigate splitting our assets. Remember, I wanted things to go smooth, so the idea was that we could figure out how much we had between us in assets, and then I'd make her a great offer when negotiating so that we wouldn't have to go through the whole long process of going in front of a judge. Fortunately for me, things came to light at that step. A lot of the things in my financial records weren't making sense. We had a lot of small withdrawals being made from our joint account. They were all going to the same place, and none of them was smaller than $200. I couldn't explain where such money was going on an almost fortnightly basis. And the thing was that those transactions had been showing up at intervals for the last 3 years. They became more regular recently, but at the start of things, it was larger amounts to that account on a somewhat monthly basis. My lawyer told me to really think about it, so I went home and did. I referenced everything I could, but at the end of the day, I couldn't figure out where that money was meant to be going. That was when my lawyer, a very intelligent woman, decided to bring a forensic financial analyst into the mix. She reached out after a few days, and I found out that the money was going from our joint account to a business account. You might not be surprised to know that the business in question was owned by Rob. They were made to look like payments for services rendered, but I know for a fact that we hadn't used Rob's businesses before, power washing. If we had, and I didn't know, not more than once or twice. We definitely didn't need power washing on a monthly basis. I don't consider myself dumb, but there was so much going on, and I was so confused by it all. It had to be spoon-fed to me, but it was clear that Angela was using our money to fund Rob's business, or maybe it just bought a conduit to send money directly to him, instead of through his personal account. I don't know if they thought they were being slick. Sure, I had never caught them, but I probably would have before a divorce came to light. In total, it seems like Angela had found ways to give her affair partner $32,000. We're not rich, we both earn about the same amount. I suppose that her earlier plan of pulling out large amounts irregularly was too conspicuous. She switched to smaller amounts that could be disguised as a larger grocery haul, but she made sure to start sending them out a lot more frequently than usual. That is a lot of money, most of it being money that I worked for. What makes this even more annoying to me is the fact that we recently pulled out a lot of money that we had saved for our other child's tuition, so we don't really consider ourselves to be liquid. I feel stupid for not noticing, and to be honest, I take all the blame. I'm sure if I had pored over our documents on my own, it would have been obvious to me that something was going on, but I suppose I trusted her more than I was meant to. I clearly did, but when you've been married to someone for nearly 2 decades and have 2 great children, you'll trust them. This divorce is going to go a very different way than I planned. I'm definitely ready to take all of this to court. She siphoned our joint funds into an affair, and I need the judge to take that into account. Update 2. I am a newly divorced man. I'm too old to cry about it, no matter how much it hurts me. I'm just glad that there's finally a clear runway in front of me. I can live my life without worrying about the woman who lied to me for years and broke my heart. I didn't do much when I told her that I wanted to divorce her. I just walked up to her, where she was putting together a snack for herself in the kitchen, and told her that we were done. She looked at me with shock on her face, and I shrugged and walked out. She chased after me and asked what I was talking about, so I just shrugged again and said, "Rob." I walked off again. This time, she didn't follow me. I guess it took a lot for her to process that I somehow had found out the truth. She came up to me much later, claiming that she wanted to talk, but I told her there wasn't anything to talk about. I expressed that I was concerned about telling the kids, but she just kept trying to drag things back to talking about how she was sorry and how she wanted to explain. I was curious about the excuse she wanted to give, but quite genuinely, I wasn't curious enough to let her have the chance to rile me up with a dumb excuse. I told her it was a done deal. During that talk, the doorbell rang, and I told her to go answer it, and we'd talk when she was back. I knew what I was doing. I knew it was the process server. She was very mad when she got back, shouting, "You've gone this far with it?" I just nodded. There was no space to forgive a cheater. She didn't respond to that. I started pointing out how far we had gone and how much we had done together. I told her I knew all about that stuff, and I had considered it before applying for divorce. She shook her head and stormed out. I told her later in the day that we needed to talk to the kids about it, but she just said, "F you," and walked out. So, as she requested, I handled telling the kids on my own. They're old enough. I told them the absolute truth. Their mom had been cheating on me with a neighbor for several years and had been siphoning a lot of our money off to him. I told them not to take it out on their mom, though I didn't care less if they do. They were upset, naturally, but comes with the territory. Anyway, let me fast forward. Our divorce went to the court. I had every last piece of my evidence. Yeah, it worked exactly how you'd expect. When it was obvious that she had essentially been stealing our money, it was considered dissipation of marital assets, and she was forced to repay that from her settlement, which meant that the money she was meant to get from her share of the house and our joint savings was basically evaporated. She left with nothing, no alimony and no child support either. The judge was a rock star. My favorite part was watching her crash out after the judgment was made. She claimed that there was no proof that the money hadn't been payment of services, and that was just an uncharitable assumption being made by the court. Her dumb lawyer tried to argue alongside her, but there was no weight behind the argument. When she saw that wasn't going to work, she tried to argue for alimony because she technically earned less than me, but effectively, it is the same amount. That was dumb, and it didn't work out for her. I won in the end. And the icing on the cake for me? When she came to the house screaming at me for telling the kids that she had cheated, I asked why she was so mad when she had actually cheated. She didn't have a good answer. She just said that I had no right to tell them that kind of adult information. They were very mature children. She knew it wasn't a problem. She was just mad they knew the kind of person she is. I'm very glad that they do. She doesn't deserve to continue to go through life acting like she's innocent. And speaking on that, I chose not to let anyone in her life think she's innocent. I sent messages to all of her relatives and family members. I made sure they all understood exactly what was going on, in case she ended up serving them with a fake story. All that mattered was that they knew she was a cheater. She came to my house again, But it didn't last long because I threatened to call the police. Her threat of, "I'm going to effing kill you, just watch," was scary enough for me to call the police and get her arrested for the threat of violence. She was out on bail pretty fast, but it doesn't matter. She's stained her record, and I didn't even plan for it. She doesn't deserve to live a good life, that's all I know. I'm glad that I've gotten the chance to destroy her chances at living a nice, happy life after ruining mine. Her family all know the kind of person she is. She's divorced without anything to her name. Our kids have already started to hate her, and she has a little run-in with the police and a court date. It's looking nice, all right, and cheating is never going to be worth it, guys. Never. Dissipating marital assets, long-term deception, documented evidence. That's not a gray area situation. That's a judge looking at the facts and going, yeah, actions have consequences. Where I think you're also justified is telling the kids the truth. They're older teens, not toddlers. Divorce doesn't happen in a vacuum. If one parent has spent years making decisions that directly affect the family's stability, pretending it's all some vague, we grew apart story can feel like gaslighting them too. You didn't turn them against her. Her choices did that. And her reaction afterward, threats, rage, trying to flip the narrative, kind of reinforces that you made the right call. What do you make of all this? Let us know below. And thank you for joining us today on